Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the GM show on this fine Wednesday evening, March 30th. I'm your host, MJ, and I'm joined by my co-host, Galen. How are we doing, How are we doing, Galen?
I'm doing all right. Yourself?
Doing fantastic. And I just want to let you guys know we're streaming on StreamYard, powered by E2G Sports Network, Ear to the Ground Sports Network. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I missing anything? Anything else? I think that's it. But you guys, if you guys have any comments, suggestions, we're going to be talking a little bit about everything today. I know we've been talking about football for the most part the last few weeks, but I think we're going to get into some other sports just to kind of give their moment of glory. But if you have any questions that you want to have answered, just make sure to comment and just leave us one. We'll be sure to answer those questions for you. Um, so as I stated, we're going to start off with a little different approach than we have recently. The Boston Celtics, our great Boston Celtics, have been on one of the biggest tears of the season, the hottest team in the NBA right now. Um, a lot of people think, obviously, it's more fact than opinion. They hit a little bit of skid the last few days. On Sunday night, in a win, they lose center Robert Williams to a torn meniscus, which is one of the biggest blows that they can sustain at this point in time, because Robert Williams, Time Lord as he is known around here, um, is one of the better defenders. He's blossomed into one of the better defenders in the NBA and has been one of the stalemates alongside Tatum and Brown as to this whole turnaround from from the early season woes that had happened to the Boston Celtics and actually have made him a legitimate title contender. Underwent a second go around surgery this morning and is projected to miss about 4 to 6 weeks. So in that time span, the playoffs, the Celtics have 6 more games. In that time span, he would be slated to return, if not before, a little after the second round of the NBA postseason. But when I see an injury like this, it's damning, because a lot of us here, and I think a lot of people around the nation, thought that this Boston Celtics team was for real. They were title contenders. I know I talked about it last week, that they were a team that I was excited to see, because I wanted to finally get that Celtic basketball back, which we kind of lost last season because of their poor play. But now you lose a guy like Robert Williams, a guy who, you know, in previous seasons played well when he played, but had to overcome other injuries as well. And to see him lost for this amount of time can definitely, and depending on how he comes back, if he's 10%, if he's only 10%, 20%, if he's not fully at that, 80 to 100%, what kind of game is he going to bring to the court? And, his defense has been, him and Marcus Smart are, those stout defenders. And to lose one of those guys, it's definitely going to hurt your chances, especially with the jam-packed East the way it is. You're a game out of first right now. And, you lose to Toronto because you obviously did not have Williams, but you also did not have Horford, Brown, and Tatum. Brown and Tatum were, missed the game because of knee issues, but nothing serious. I think Horford's slated to come back tonight, and I don't know if there's an update. I know they're Brown and Tatum were probable to return tonight against the Miami Heat, the number one seed in the NBA. But this is one of those games, and late in the season, 6 games left. You need to make that you need to make that push. You need to make that statement against potentially the best team in the East at this point. So big, so it's a big game tonight in TD Garden. I think it'll be 7:30 tip off. So we'll be watching intently, because we want to see how this team can respond to a close loss to Toronto on Monday. But if this, we want to see what they can, what Ime Udoka can come up with in order to kind of overcome that loss of Robert Williams. What are your thoughts on the loss of Robert Williams? And do you think that does this change anything that we've been feeling for the Celtics later on in the season, Galen?
I mean, it's certainly a big loss, right? Right out the gate, starting just on Monday, and then we're going to see a second go at it, but, much closer to a full lineup minus him tonight against the Heat. But I feel like, in the short term, yes, this is definitely a huge loss. No way around it. But I feel like at the same breath, before looking to go full blown panic mode and stuff like that, I feel like there's enough time left in the season, and before we have the playoffs here, and just onto season number two, I feel like there's enough games left in the season to see if they can kind of like refine their game. I mean, certainly you're not going to be able to mirror it and kind of duplicate Robert Williams 2.0 with the likes of you know what's his face, Daniel
Yeah,
Tice,
no choice. Yeah,
and guys like
Grant
Grant
Williams.
Williams, some of their remaining bigs, Al Horford. But I feel like those guys, they're every bit, complementary with the remaining nucleus. They do serve a purpose both on the offensive and defensive ends of the floor. It's just when it comes to Robert Williams, he's certainly turned out to be one of the better big men in the league, and certainly by far and away the best big man on the Celtics. So, I mean, when you have shot blocking ability, the ability to go up and get it, and just play that lob game with Tatum and Brown. I mean, those things are just like next level, and a lot of times help in a big way to alleviate floor on this. I mean, space on the floor and obvious pressure, double team, stuff like that. With their two stars, being the Jays, the two Jays. But I feel like I said, that it's not like this is happening at the very end where there's only like 2 or 3 games to go before the playoff starts, and then now obviously that timeline is pushed back even further. You may not even get them back at all. I mean, I feel like half of this, best case scenario time frame is kind of cut in with the wrapping up of the regular season. So, best case scenario, how much Celtics spin is coming out with the reports and stuff like that. That was stated by Adrian Wojnarowski. Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely best case scenario. Minimum of possible 4 weeks. I'm still kind of like very reserved with that, kind of wait and see before I get too excited and optimistic. And it may not even be the latter, but I'm thinking maybe an extra week, maybe 5 weeks or so. But in any event, that 4 to 5 week time frame, 4 to 6 week, the early end of that, the 4 week range is gonna be right there, in time. It looks like for right around the startup of the second round. I think it's safe to say that this Celtics team is very talented, and is proven to, have that well-rounded team, this whole second half, and rapport, chemistry. I mean, they're just clicking, on all cylinders for a long time, and we almost seen the improbable on Monday night when they were obviously four starters. I mean, they were pretty much had that game, won, and was feeling pretty good, and had control of that for much of the game, and they just lost it, at the very end there in overtime. I feel like they just ran out of gas more than anything. So I feel like with them having another mere victory, without Tatum, without Brown, without obviously Grant. I mean, not Grant Williams. Robert Williams. And to get, and also Al Horford, and to get 3 out of those 4 guys back as early as tonight, with, obviously a premier and top talent here in the Eastern Conference. I think this is going to go a long way when, start talking about the immediate aftermath, life without Robert Williams. I feel like we're really going to see what this team is made of. And I think that they're probably, once again, like they've been doing for months now, they're probably gonna turn things up and look to, kind of hey, relax, we can kind of stay the course or whatever over the next month or so until our guy comes back. I don't think that this should really shake them much, if at all.
I hope so. I mean, I hope you're right, but I mean, I just think that the impact that he's had, his defensive presence, and over this stretch run that the Celtics have dominated the NBA for the most part. It's he was a big proponent. Obviously, Jason Tatum is the star piece, the centerpiece of this of the Celtics. He's their superstar. He's the guy that's you know he's the new captain if they still carry the captain names. And I'm interested to see is this could be the time that Jason Tatum finally takes over. Let's see what Jason Tatum is really made of. We know he's a great talent. We know he's one of the best players in the NBA right now. But is he able to, not say LeBron like, I don't want to put him in that, that stratosphere, but can he take over series? Can he take over games and be that dominant presence? Have that alpha male like a Kobe Bryant used to have in the postseason, and win some games single-handedly for the Celtics. We know he can do it in the regular season. We've seen him do it.
I was just gonna say we're seeing it now, but not necessarily tested in the playoffs. Yeah.
When push comes to shove, are you gonna fold? Or are you just gonna be happy with being an all pro player and an NBA All-Star? Or do you want to be one of the elites of the elites? And what that means is, do you want to win a ring? Do you want to be in that upper echelon of guys who at least, there's many guys that, that play in the league that have multiple rings, but do you want to at least be in that, for at least in Boston Celtics standards, that KG, that Paul Pierce, where your number essentially will eventually, if you win run, it's almost a guarantee your number is going to go up in that rafters because everyone goes up there. But, you get cemented in Celtic lore. Does he want to be that? Does he want to be that? And does he have it in him? I think he can for certain series. I mean, I'm scared about the Nets and the Bucks. Those are the two teams, because without Robert Williams, you have a definite mismatch with guys like Giannis. You obviously have the superstars of Brooklyn, Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Without Robert Williams and his defensive presence, Marcus Smart can only do so much, and we know he's a great, potentially defensive player of the year. But he needs that big man help, and I just think that's going to be the toughest challenge. And I know a lot of people are saying Ben Simmons will be back for the Nets. I'm not worried about Ben Simmons. That's not who I'm worried about. I'm just worried that when you give Kyrie and Kevin Durant, if they're healthy, if they are fully healthy, that would be probably the worst case scenario for the Celtics now that Robert Williams is done, because the Nets look like they're going to have to play in the play-in tournament, and then depending on where you fall in seeding, you can be in first place by the end of the night, or you can fall back to fourth place. It's a top, it's going all over the place. But I don't know if we just answered the question, but do you think, in your honest opinion, when you look at the NBA as far as the Eastern Conference landscape, do you think the Celtics' chances, I mean, obviously they kind of took a big hit, but do you still see them as a team that can compete for an Eastern Conference Finals, potentially an NBA Finals appearance? And, and if Robert Williams comes back, do you think that this is still a team that could essentially win an NBA Finals?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, listen, there's not too many teams right now coming down the stretch, especially along with these Celtics here. There's not too many rosters right now that are really wowing me and just kind of blowing my mind. But the Celtics, and I'm not saying it because they're the hometown team. I mean, even you can make a little bit of a case on Monday night. Who even made that trip other than, the obvious probably most notable of the bunch being Marcus Smart right along there with Grant Williams. Other than that, I mean, there was a bunch of guys that stay riding the pine. And when I say that, not just like as pure bench options, I mean, guys that like almost never see the floor outside of the last 30 seconds to a minute left in yet again another blowout. I mean, these guys were playing big minutes. A few of those guys were just called on, as de facto starters. And listen, they almost went in there and stole one right under the noses of the Toronto Raptors. So I feel like that was very, very telling. I think there's enough time left, in these couple weeks to kind of, just get that new, present chemistry without their big man, Robert Williams. But you still, I feel like, have just enough justifiable talent in Tice, in Al Horford, especially being the seasoned vet that he is. And then, of course, yes, he is special, Robert Williams. He was a legitimate defensive player of the year candidate. But let's not forget Robert Williams, where he's probably, hands down the best big man defender you have, and he may even be running a close second to like the Marcus Smarts of the world, but just obviously at two different positions. But without him, I mean, would you say you're not impressed as the lockdown team that they've become? I mean, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, Marcus Smart, the addition of White, even Grant Williams, a lot of times has stepped up and shown me something, with his defense and stuff out of the forward spot. So I mean, it's not like they're swearing by two guys night in and night out, and now they're down one of those guys. There's still a good three or four that a lot of their competition come playoff time is going to have their hands full. I feel like it was Stephen A. Smith, I think it was a few days ago, described it beautifully, that they're like hornets, that just storm you, and they just keep on coming, they don't let up. And that's kind of like the impression that, makes perfect sense. I mean, I wasn't thinking it until I heard it, but he's kind of right. I mean, and outside of Brooklyn, yes, I'll give you that. And maybe even with the reluctancy of them coming out and saying, yep, like the team's good, we wouldn't have any issues traveling in and out of Canada and stuff like that regarding, the COVID situation and what we're still seeing playing out there. I mean, that might cause you a little suspect, like who's vaccinated, who isn't, and if so, could that kind of hurt them? If they happen to see Toronto in the playoffs. But other than that, I'll take my chances with Milwaukee, even though I'm not quick to see them. And you betcha, you know what? I'll take the chances with Chicago, Cleveland, even Philly. Philly doesn't really scare me, after seeing what they've been doing and what this team, as well has been literally just taking care of business. I do like the Celtics. They're going to get out the first round. They should get out the first round. And if that's the case and this timeline holds true, then I guess we're going to see Robert Williams back. And then it's game on.
Yeah, I mean, it's all predicated on what is the matchup in the first round, because there's a lot of potential matchups that they can potentially have. I'm not scared of the Bulls. The Bulls' hot streak has, immediately cooled down. So I think that if they can get a good matchup, if they can avoid the Nets by any means in the first round. That's why I really don't want the one seed as much. Actually, the Nets can actually get the 7, but either way, the one seed never really is a big thing in the NBA, anyways, because we've seen with the Celtics, they had the one seed in 17 and they had the one seed in 18. That did nothing for you. The Cavs still came into your house and stomped on you. So, seeding at this point doesn't really matter to me. I'm not scared of the 76ers. I just don't trust Embiid and Harden. Great talents, but do you expect them to kind of come? We essentially have their number in the playoffs, so I don't really. I mean, the Sixers, not with Harden, but yeah, just once you get to the second round, that's when you're going to need that defense. And I was impressed. Marcus Smart is one of those guys that gives me headaches at times, because he just doesn't know when to stop and when to quit. He wants to take those shots up. Great defender, but he's not. He thinks he's his all-star caliber talent. He's not. He's a Tony Allen type player that makes probably has a better shot than Tony Allen, but I'd still kind of I'm hesitant whenever I see him take a jumper up there, because it always seems like it's going to be brick after brick after brick. When he hits one, it's cool, it's nice, but you kind of wish that it didn't go. Sometimes I wish it doesn't go in, because then in his head he thinks, "Oh, I'm a game changer. I'm going to keep taking those shots." So, but I think that the Celtics do still have a legitimate chance, just because it looks like the Heat are imploding as they're going, and who was the other team? Oh, and the Bucks. The Bucks are still defending champions. So that's a team that scares me. So the Bucks and the Nets, if you can get by if you can get by with just playing one of those teams to get by one of those teams, I think you have a legitimate shot of coming out the East. Then the biggest challenge comes is, are you up to par with the teams in the West, like the Suns, the Grizzlies, and if the Warriors come back healthy, could you compete with them? And that's something that we haven't seen them at that stage yet. And, we definitely want to see them at that stage. But I just want to say, you're listening to the GM show, the newly minted GM show. We're going to stick with that. Last week, I kept saying GM show. It's official. It's the GM show, everyone. Listen to it on the E2G Sports Network, presented streaming on StreamYard. You can find us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. If you guys have any comments or questions about what we're discussing today, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. But we're going to stick with the NBA, and we're going to go to Galen's, his Bobo, one of his favorite players of all time in the NBA. To him, he's the GOAT, and I don't want to get into that discussion because we can go all day with that discussion. But
did I say that?
Did you say he's a GOAT? That he's the greatest of all time? Yeah, this guy? Yeah, you think he is. LeBron James.
I guess I always said that the conversation is warranted. I never said that he was or would be.
I don't know. It seems like when you argue it, though, you argue it as if it's a matter of fact. Like, it's like, no, he's not. And when anyone says Jordan, you're like, brah, you blow a lid.
I go brah, like when they mention Kobe Bryant. Yes, you best believe LeBron passed Kobe, and he passed him quite a while ago. But Michael Jordan, it's still Michael Jordan. Huge fan, just like the next person.
Just like the next person. Okay.
Yep. Absolutely.
So the Los Angeles Lakers, big market team, one of the highest, those financially, the wealthiest team in the NBA. Everyone loves the Lakers. Everyone loves the Lake Show, Los Angeles, City of Angels. When LeBron James went there back in 2018, it seems as though that it was going to be, they were going to be the contenders in the East. They were going to be with the Warriors, contending each and every year for Western Conference Finals and NBA Finals championships. It was almost a matter, it was almost like it was destined to happen. Kind of like the Brooklyn Nets in the East when they stockpiled all those players. They get Anthony Davis. LeBron James has been there for now 3 years, 4 seasons, excuse me. And the results haven't been as pretty as you'd expect. Yes, they have had that one championship year that was it was the bubble year, obviously. They took some time off, went to the bubble, and they won a championship. Some may say you count that. Some may say you don't. I'm not going to get into that. If the Celtics would have won, I would have counted it. So I guess I'd be a hypocrite if I said no. So it counted. They played in a bubble and it's in dire circumstances. So props to them. They won a championship. They maximized on the acquisition of Anthony Davis, pairing him up with LeBron James, and that was awesome. Next season looks like they were going to repeat. They were the clear-cut favorite, one of the clear-cut favorites to win. It was going to be Lakers Nets. They get bounced by the Suns in the playoffs. This season, after the loss last night to the Dallas Mavericks, 128-110, Lakers are now 31-44, and they are currently out of the play-in tournament competition tournament that will determine who is going to be the 7th in the 8th seed. And with a team with that much star power, that much, pizzazz, you have a guy, and it's one of the greatest players of all time. I will say that, top 5 definitely. With that kind of talent, and with that talent on your roster, like a guy like a Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, even Dwight Howard, can put up some minutes and still, be from what we saw in the past, can still be decent. From what we saw from them, And obviously Anthony Davis, when healthy, is a superstar player in the NBA. It seems as though since arriving in LA, to become a new movie star, a lot of people said, his stay and his time in LA has been so underwhelming that I don't know if it could even last any longer than this season. It just seems as though there's so much turmoil with him in the front office, with him and Russell Westbrook with the Lakers, the fans. I mean, Russell Westbrook, when great talent, can definitely, can put up numbers, can put up, Hall of Fame stats, which he will be a Hall of Famer, which isn't really saying much for the NBA. But I digress. He is not a winner. He's not gonna, he doesn't really care about winning. He is not in his blood. It's not like Kobe and Michael Jordan. He doesn't have that in him. A lot of players in the NBA don't. Russell Westbrook is not one of those guys. And when you pair him up with a guy with LeBron James, who is dedicated to winning and winning, kind of trying to catch up to Jordan, so he can say, yes, I am as good as Jordan, if not better. It's just this the season still, they still have a few games to go. They have 7 more games to go, but it just seems as though that ever since he got to LA, the expectations haven't really met expectations, and I don't know if they can go any further than this. After this season, there's potential they can blow it up, as far as getting rid of Anthony Davis or LeBron James or even both. What do you think is do you consider LeBron James's 4-year run in Los Angeles a success or a failure? I don't want to say failure because they won one, but just kind of so.
I'd have to say more appropriately, certainly underwhelming. I'll label it because I mean, me just like the next, obvious LeBron James fan, I I didn't really see a decline in such a lackluster and obvious below average Laker team virtually any time that with the whole presence of LeBron James and whoever else he was able to recruit. I mean, I thought it was just going to be I don't know the title city for LA. At least a couple times over in his stop there. I thought that they were going to be able to at least be competitive, if not, dare I say, one of the teams to beat. Pretty dominant. And I feel like when you're looking at LeBron James and this LA Laker team, I mean, it's not really because he's not being his usual self, like we've known him to be his whole career. I mean, he's still playing at a high level. He's obviously no longer the game's greatest talent, and undisputed number one player. But he's still got it. He's definitely very explosive. He's still, you know, very damn good, if not elite, whenever he chooses to be elite. I feel like you're seeing more and more of, pedal breaking with him and kind of turning it on, scaling it back a little bit. And I will say this, I mean, when have you ever seen in a LeBron James year that he's been obviously an NBA player since a young kid coming out of high school till the present day? When have you ever, well, before the present day, when have you ever seen a single LeBron James team, the years of him being a Cavalier to the Miami Heat, LA, I mean, well, before LA, it was back to Cleveland again. LA, I feel like at the very least, he's always been good for getting his team into the playoffs. We just know him to do that when he's not winning titles, and they're like nowhere's near having even a legitimate shot this year, especially with only about 8, 9, 10 games or so left in the season. Like you said, they're out of the playoff tournament. I mean, the play-in tournament. And furthermore, I mean, with the Western Conference and how it's shaping up, especially being pretty top heavy all the way down to the, just trash of it, and one of those teams being the Lakers. They're like 13 games under 500, and wait for it, 30 and a half games back, right now, from that top seed. When have you ever, seen any of James's teams be that far behind? It's like I didn't even think it was possible. I really didn't. With a LeBron James led team, 30 games back. I mean, yeah, I definitely never saw this coming, especially with him, going to LA. I mean, and I think if this season in itself has shown us anything, it's that LeBron James, the GM, is nowhere near as good and talented as LeBron James, the player. And I feel a big part of the GM side of LeBron is what you're seeing. Some of these guys that are making up the groceries, the guys that he's wanting to play right next to and look to recruit to the Lakers. More often than not, they've not only missed, but they've been big misses. And right now, he's at a point in his career with his age and stuff like that. He needs more help. He can't put a team on his back, at least night in and night out like he once did.
Yeah, I think that LeBron, everyone gives LeBron he's the guy who started this whole super team era back in 2010. And, a lot of people made fun of him that he needed Bosh, he needed Wade in order to win a ring. And, that, I don't know if that was necessarily the case, but it did elevate his game. And he did win MVPs a couple MVPs when he was in Miami for those 4 championships, 2 rings. But at this time, more than ever, at his age, I think that he, obviously he has, if you look at the roster, if you just didn't know anything about what's going on in the NBA and you didn't know the records, you would just look at the roster. He has all the pieces to be a legitimate contender and should be higher than an 11th seed in the Western Conference. So it's basically the chemistry, the experiment that they went into this season with getting Carmelo, his old buddy, guy like Russell Westbrook, bringing Dwight Howard back. That experiment did not, hold true, and it just didn't seem as and it's just not working. So obviously they're going to have to make some tough decisions, and that leads me to my next question. Do you think that, obviously LeBron wanted to go to LA because he was thinking more, bigger than just basketball. He wanted to obviously get into, this Hollywood lifestyle, this Hollywood night, the entertainment business. And obviously he already made one movie, Space Jam: A New Legacy, that came out last year. So that's his first start, but he wants to kind of delve deep with him and, him and Rich Paul. They're very, his whole team, they want to be, they want to be bigger than, be as good as, be as marketable as Jordan post basketball career. But if this, the way of the season, if the season ends with them not even sniffing the playoffs, or even they get into the play-in tournament but lose in the first game, could you see LeBron James leaving? And I know one team that they've thrown out some some speculation towards, which I find kind of odd, but I mean, you can never, third time's a charm, I guess, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Going back home, they have a guy like Darius Garland on their team. That's about it at this point. Karis LeVert. So it's not something that's very appealing to LeBron if he would to do, go back to Cleveland, not like he had the last time where he had Kyrie and they got Kevin Love. But, if he wants to finish his career in Cleveland, do you think that if not in Cleveland, then where else could you see if it's not with the Lakers? The first question, do you think this is LeBron's last ride in LA?
I don't actually. I really don't, because for all the reasons that you mentioned, I mean, it was obviously, he thought a really good landing spot for him in his present, basketball career, and looking to finish up, his career, with that city. And then, there wasn't just the on court, side of it. I feel like, even the off the court and being so close and right there in Hollywood, where all the stars align, literally both on the court and off the court, especially if there is that whole interest with Hollywood and really kind of taking his brand to another level. Mainly like post basketball, if not, even while he's wrapping up his playing days. I mean, I feel like he went to LA for more ways than just the obvious primary reason being basketball. I think it was to set up him and his family for the here and the now, the here and the now, and more so even the future. So if you're LeBron James, and that is true, or you believe to be true, I mean, whether it's Cleveland or another city, do I see him really considering it, desiring it, wanting it? I really don't, because I feel like if that's the case, then he's now having to pick up, relocate, and then if he still wants to do the whole Hollywood thing, what, just be bouncing all around and move back. I mean, well, then again, I mean, these players can obviously have homes and do have homes in multiple locations, but you get what I mean. I feel like he just wanted to make a seamless transition, just stay there and ride it out. I feel like, like you had already said, I do see changes coming. I feel like this is going to leave a super, super sour and bad taste in his mouth. It's already there. He's already looking at the future. He knows that, things need to be done. But I feel like you're going to see guys being moved in and out of there, shifted around. And he's going to try and look to get another band, I think, put back together. And he's going to be the constant. I think he's going to stay put. I wouldn't really buy the rumors.
I know that. I mean, they're definitely going to be looking to part ways from Westbrook. That's probably a foregone conclusion.
That's a given. He's been awful,
and
God
he's
awful.
His career is kind of where he's still talented. His career is kind of took a is on the downturn after his great years with Oklahoma City, but.
Yeah.
They got to get, a big thing is Anthony Davis stays healthy. That's one big thing. If he can't stay healthy, then, that duo can only take him so far. LeBron James can only do so much.
Let's talk about Anthony Davis. I could definitely see him being on the move.
Yeah, that's one. That's another one.
I think the feeling could be mutual too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we'll see though. But we still got 7 games for the Lakers, 6 games for the Celtics. We're closing in. Comes probably one of the best times of year because you get at basketball playoffs starting. You get NHL Stanley Cup playoffs starting, and obviously
playoffs
after the playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. Like you don't wait on a game. But now but obviously another sport that's coming up a week from Thursday, is MLB opening day. We didn't think we'd get it on time. We didn't really get it on time, but we didn't miss as much. We probably lost about a week, and we lost no series. But it is upon us. MLB opening day is upon us 1 week from today. Galen and I will give you what we think is going to happen next week's show. So we still have, another week to go another show to go before the actual season gets underway. But, there's a lot of teams that, we forgot about. A lot of teams that made some offseason moves prior to the lockout that we forgot. Okay, they got that guy. They got that guy. Obviously, there's a lot of deals that were made in free agency the last couple weeks, but some teams that a lot of people forget about that do have a legitimate chance. When I think about, and one question we're going to ask is, as far as underrated MLB Major League Baseball teams, baseball, now that they have the expanded playoffs, a lot more teams are going to get a chance of, avoiding that tanking and probably having a legitimate shot. Because we all know when you get to October, the best team doesn't always win. We've seen that time and time again. So when I look at teams that, made some strides last year, the Seattle Mariners is one. They haven't made the playoffs since 2001. That's 20 years they haven't been in the postseason. The Los Angeles Angels, all the talent in the world. That's a team that I look at, and they need to somehow get over the hump and get to a postseason. Because with Mike Trout, was once the best player in Major League Baseball, still might be, but he has only been to the postseason once. And there's a lot of up and coming teams that are going to be, definitely teams that are gonna, excuse me, that are going to become one of those household names. The Detroit Tigers made some moves. The Chicago White Sox are an up and coming team in the AL Central. Minnesota Twins just added Carlos Correa. They did lose Josh Donaldson, but that's a team that's these small market teams. My point that I'm trying to get to is these small market teams are no longer becoming small market. Players actually are going to these teams, and they're kind of making them big market teams. My question to you is, Galen, when you look at the MLB landscape, whether it's AL, NL, is there a team that you look at that no one's talking about? Everyone looks at and they're kind of overlooked. When they talk about World Series chances, they're kind of going Dodgers, Yankees, Red Sox, and then they're just forgetting this team. What's a team that when you look at, that's going to have a legitimate chance at challenging for October and potentially, making a deep postseason run in October?
So that's a little different than what I was reading
Yeah.
up on it and preparing for with our little rundown here.
What's the most underrated? What's the underrated team? So like, what's the team, like an underrated team that you see
Okay,
and you're like, okay, yeah, that's not. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, but yeah, if you look at a team and you see,
yeah,
because you like myself and like a lot of people are, that's one of your favorite sports, baseball. So
yeah,
you
no, it
would
definitely
know as
is.
far as the ins and outs. I know a lot, but you would know like the ins and outs as far as prospects,
Yeah.
who's up and coming for these teams. So you let me know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a couple of teams. Um, I think for a couple seasons now, you can't rule out the White Sox. They definitely got something going there, and they're certainly heading in the right direction. I like what they're doing there in the Central. And if a couple of these guys stay healthy and just continue to put up and perform, when on the field and stuff like that, I feel like they could definitely, before long be taken seriously. You did mention Anaheim. I love, love, love what they have there with the man himself, the show,
Show.
the nightly show, Mr. Otani there. I mean, you got him, still a very prolific and incredible talent in Mike Trout. They have their young prospect there, Odell, in the outfield. He's supposed to be, the center fielder that they're growing. That they're grooming. But he's yet to kind of really kind of live up to expectation. So who knows? I mean, could this year be the year? I mean, maybe. And like you said, the Seattle Mariners. I really like what Seattle's doing. They have another one that's set to potentially even make the opening day roster, if not probably get called up shortly thereafter, in Julio Rodriguez. So that's a name to watch. You had everybody's love from a prospect standpoint last year, Jared, killing it. So I mean, he was a little lackluster until September. Then he finally turned it on. So will he carry it into this year? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. And then they have, a couple of young pitching arms too. So I feel like that West, finally is gonna, be a little bit more well rounded and just bring about some nice competition. But I feel like of all those teams, the teams that are really ready, and I think primed to take that next jump pending health. I'm gonna go with the Chicago White Sox. With that. And I guess you can say, to what you drew up. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe that is my team that isn't quite getting enough buzz. But to tell you who I really wanted to say, because I
Mhm.
mean, I can't be any more serious, and
Mhm.
I can't really take them all that seriously as a slam dunk contender like you anointed them. But I was just gonna say, one of the big fishes, the New York Yankees, and I say that because I don't view them as the same scary and expected, obvious, you know, contender like we've done for so many years down through the years. But I feel like in terms of what team isn't getting enough buzz, I'm just going with those few words. We've heard almost next to nothing from Yankee camp, spring training since the lockout. And, all they've have been left with, and I feel like the Sox here are running a close second, but with the signing of what's his face,
Josh Donaldson. They traded for
no,
Josh Donaldson.
no. For the Red Sox,
Oh,
Trevor
Trevor
Story.
Story. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they traded for Donaldson, but other than Donaldson, they haven't done anything. And I feel like up until the Red Sox was able to be fortunate with their signing of Trevor Story, they hadn't done anything. But I feel like there's been a little bit more optimism, a little bit more excitement, at least for the hometown Red Sox or whatever. And after the Donaldson trade, it has been like a very anti sort of Yankee-ish sort of spring, and I don't know, with the likes of Toronto and the Rays and maybe even the Red Sox, I don't even forecast them as like an obvious contender in AL East. So yeah, for those reasons, I don't feel like they're being talked about enough, good or bad. Because normally they're right there with the Red Sox and some of the elite around the league dominating the headlines, and they're just not.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we're not used to this, especially in our day and age where it was kind of always, especially when it came to off-season free agency, it was always Red Sox, Yankees. And then it was, wherever Big Fish was out there, it was either is he going to go to the Red Sox, is he going to go to the Yankees, maybe the Cubs, maybe the Mets, maybe the Dodgers. But we were, the two teams were always in the mix, and it seems as though they kind of, I don't know, it's maybe because of the luxury tax, they kind of lost that steam that they used to have. But when I look at the Yankees, I mean, they did have, they obviously have Garrett Cole, a Cy Young contender, one of the best starting pitchers in the league. And they got guys like DJ LeMahieu, who they gave a lot of money to last year. Anthony Rizzo's back. Obviously, Aaron Judge is out there, Joey Gallo. So they have a lot of pieces, but we saw how it was last year. They didn't, even with a lot of those pieces, they still couldn't put it together. Their pitching staff is still very suspect, as well as the Red Sox. So, I mean, that's why I don't really think of them, especially when I think of Yankees. I don't think of underrated because I think a lot of people still look at them as they rate them. Yeah. So,
JB, we're off and running.
So. You watching the game right now? I can't. So my TV is behind me. I can't. I have to look over here.
I got my iPad.
iPad. Okay. But what was I saying? Oh yeah. So yeah, you threw me off there. Yeah, but for me, I think like the Minnesota Twins for me is a team that I look at that could actually, because Chicago White Sox is kind of the cream of the crop in that division. I like what the Twins have, the moves they made with Carlos Correa. They have Miguel Sano, Byron Buxton. They have, they have a potential to, have a pretty good lineup on there. And the Angels, I want to see them. Obviously they have the star power, but I just want to see them become a contender in the AL. Just because it's time. It's time. It's wasted talent that we're not seeing in the postseason in October.
I get what you're saying about Minnesota and some of these teams, but I feel like when we're just talking about not generating enough buzz and headlines, what did the White Sox really do? Except bring back a lot of their core. A lot of their core is young, granted, get guys healthy in the offseason. The Minnesota Twins, they got their guy, Carlos Correa. They re-signed, at least to this point, what had been their franchise, star talent when on the field and healthy, Byron Buxton. So Minnesota has gotten their share of run and acknowledgement in the media, and excitement, intrigue, buzz, all that stuff. Where I feel like people are kind of forgetting about the White Sox, so that's why I went with the White Sox.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, obviously, they're a team that's up and coming, and they're definitely going to be out there. So we were initially going to talk about the NFL overtime rules. They switched to the NFL. They switched the overtime rules to have two. Each team has a possession just for the postseason. But we can get into that a week from now because I want to get into a topic. It's not sports, but it's just something that everyone is talking about. in the media today, in the last few days, and that's something that happened in Los Angeles. We were talking about the Lakers earlier, on one of the biggest award show nights in probably all all year. That's usually the big event for all fans of the film, as some people might say. Will Smith in the middle of a Chris Rock monologue, about to give an award, presenting an award for a documentary that eventually would be won by Questlove. Made a I look at the joke. I look at the joke when from my point of view, I look at the joke as very harmless. It was kind of corny to begin with. I don't think it wasn't really that funny. I think it was just kind of cheesy, and it is what it is. He made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith, who is bald. She does have alopecia. Let's all get that out of the way. We're not making fun of people with alopecia. He made a joke about can't wait to go see her in G.I. Jane 2. And, guy garnered some laughs. And even Will Smith himself had a chuckle. But when he looked at his wife, Jada Pinkett, she did not find that to be funny at all. And his first instinct, Will Smith's first instinct, is to walk up on stage. The way the Oscar was set, I'm sure people have seen it, but he was legitimately about maybe 10 feet away from Chris Rock. He was able to what'd you do? He was able to walk up there and went up there, just stormed off. Chris Rock thought it was a joke and went on to smack Chris Rock in the face and give Chris Rock props. He took it like a champ. I mean, he just kept laughing, didn't really change what he was doing. He still was laughing and kind of took his, just kind of thought it was like, what the hell was that? Like he said, Will Smith just slapped the shit out of me. And then, a lot of people thought, okay, this is fake. This is probably a stunt, whatever. Ha ha ha. Then Will Smith went on to start yelling obscenities to Chris Rock about leaving his wife's name out of his effing mouth. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and I only know we only have about 8 minutes to talk about this, but I still want to get it in there. What I saw when I saw this, I saw a man that was so broken down that on the biggest stage of his life, he was up for best actor for for his role in King Richard, which I haven't seen it yet, but I heard that he did a fantastic job. Kudos to him and to the Williams family, the Serena and Venus Williams. But this guy had a mental breakdown, and I think it all stems, from his, obviously his relationship with his wife, his open marriage, and he broke down on national television. And one thing you can never do to anybody, no matter a comedian or a presenter, just walk up there and kind of assault someone and kind of get away with it, which Will Smith did. And I think it's odd that even, obviously he's an A-lister and Chris Rock maybe is sort of B-lister, maybe borderline A-lister just because of his comedy. But he thought that it was all right for him to kind of go up there and just full on embarrass Chris Rock, essentially what some people might call it a bitch slap, which it wasn't really, but, just kind of, down, bring Chris Rock down in front of everyone, in front of a national, international audience. People, everywhere was watching this. So I thought that it was very unacceptable. I don't think Will Smith can ever live this down. I think he's going to have to relive this for the rest of his life. That's something that's going to follow you no matter what he does. Even if he apologizes, goes on the apology tour, Bad Boys 4, he's going to hear it when that comes out. He's going to, any other movie he makes, anything because I think he's going to be out of work for a while because he needs to kind of let this thing cool down as much as possible. But what I just wanted to touch up on it because I've, obviously all these even sports radio shows, sports networks, Stephen A. Smith is talking about it. Everywhere you turn, it's the biggest story in general around America, whether it's sports or not, everywhere is talking about it. So when you saw it, I'm sure obviously you saw it, Galen, but when you saw it, what was your first reaction? Did you think it was kind of that Chris Rock deserved it, or do you think that obviously like the rest of us, most of us, do you think that it was over the line for Will Smith? And do you think that Will Smith may have a mental issue because of it?
So, I mean, I didn't see any of it live. I happened to catch the replay of it. and that whole occurrence. So I feel like I didn't. I'm not as up with you with the whole joke. I mean, I knew what it was pertaining to and who it was directed at.
Yeah.
Comically, but I mean, I will say, call me crazy, but I thought it was different. I thought it was, you know, I thought it was just as real as it's gonna get, especially in the world that we live in. I feel like too many times people say we have to be politically correct, with our behavior, with how we say things, just our body language. I mean, you name it. I feel like too many times I feel like man is just walking on eggshells and because of it they're afraid to like be themselves when things start to arise and really kind of present itself, good, bad, or indifferent. I always feel like you should reserve the right to act accordingly if the time and place calls for it. And I feel like, yeah, where I can understand and respect your opinion on the matter, but I mean, let's face it, MJ. I mean, you're not in his shoes. I'm not in his shoes. I mean, we don't know if we would have acted the same exact way. But
I know I
when you
wouldn't
talk,
have.
when you talk, well, okay, easier said than done. But let's just assume that you're married. You're sitting there, the stage that it was. I mean, let someone kind of be going to town and keep on going to town with your wife and their medical said situation that they're dealing with. I mean, when's enough enough? When is that line gonna be drawn? And I get it. There's that fine line because of their livelihood and them being comedians and stuff like that. But I feel like sometimes even when you're watching, stand up, or even better, you go live and like you see those people in the front row. Yeah, you're kind of looking for it, you're asking for it. But I feel like I sometimes catch myself like, oh my god, like Jesus, they're just going in, like, all right, like it's becoming too much. Like you can
Mhm.
only like you start to kind of feel bad for them, and then clearly Will and the wife there, they weren't even in front row. They were like, a little bit of a
They're right
distance
there.
away. I mean, they were right there. Obviously, it can be seen, but it's just like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that he doesn't have thick skin, but I feel like apparently that was just pushed to a point, in the moment to no return, and he just had enough. And it's hard saying that, like, oh, like how dare he was wrong, this and that. Listen, that's his wife. Obviously, there's love there. They've been married for a long, long time. Forget, their open marriage or whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, that's who he's waking up to and laying his head down at night. And I can't really fault the man if he's just like, you know what, I can't help myself. This warrants it. I'm going to take matters into my own hands. Maybe I would have, maybe I wouldn't. I wouldn't have taken it to such great lengths, but I don't know. It's just very, very dicey. It's a hard situation to really be able to speak comfortably one way or the other. But I think over time, like you say, like that this is probably what he's going to need to heal and kind of let things die down a little bit. But I kind of enjoyed it because we don't really see too many people just living in the moment, and even more importantly, on such a stage, a lot of times getting so caught up in the moment and just being real. I feel like there's a lot of just, oh, I can't say or do this, I can't act like this or be ghetto, whatever. Like, even though that is kind of a part of them. So I can respect, man, just being true to themselves on the biggest of stages.
So where I disagree, I just think that he should have handled it. I mean, obviously they're all actors, they're all adults, they're all professionals. Obviously, if you have disapproval, don't laugh at the joke to begin with. That's his first mistake. His second
Yep,
mistake is
absolutely.
walking up there. You don't do that. If you have a problem with Chris Rock, see him at the backstage afterwards or at the after party. Say something there, and if it ends up in a fight, then so be it. At least I'd have respect for that. But don't do it in front. Just trying to trying to demean who Chris Rock is, and that's the only reason why. I mean, if he ever,
But I don't think it was intentional, because I know you said if he apologizes, whatever. When
he did apologize, but
he did apologize, and looking at least the transcript and the words and stuff like that, it seemed like it was very sincere and genuine. So that's why I'm kind of willing just to kind of move on, and just kind of enjoy the moment for what it was. I don't think he's proud of his actions when looking back on it.
all right, yeah, I'll agree on that one. But well, that's going to be it for this show. We went a little bit over, only a couple seconds over. But join us next week, same time, same place on the E2G Sports Network via StreamYard, on all the publication sites mentioned earlier: Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. If you guys have any questions, concerns, suggestions, please reach out to either myself, Galen, myself or Galen. Throughout the week. And if you guys have any topics that you want our thoughts on, or if you want to hear a little bit more about, feel free to give us, send us something. We'll try our best to fit it in next week. But for Galen, I'm MJ. Thank you for watching tonight, and I hope everyone has a great week and a great weekend. Good night, Galen. Talk to you soon.